The needle buzzed against skin, steady, precise, like breathing. Jameson Brennan's hands moved with the certainty of a man who'd learned control the hard way. 15 years wearing a Hells Angels patch had taught him violence. The last 2 years had taught him patience. The black ink dragon taking shape on his client's shoulder blade was testament to which lesson stuck. 11 o'clock on a Thursday night, Redemption Inc. stayed open late. Most of Portland slept, but Jameson's shop hummed with fluorescent light and the metallic tang of antiseptic. The radio played low, classic rock, the kind that reminded him of roads he'd traveled when the world felt simpler. His phone vibrated on the workstation. He ignored it. Finishing a tale required focus. The dragon's scales needed symmetry. His client, a trucker named Mitch, had saved 2 years for this piece. Jameson didn't rush art. The phone buzzed again. Then again. Jameson lifted the needle, wiped the excess ink. "Mary's, the emergency room." "But Jace, please don't. I'm on my way." He ended the call. Mitch was already standing, reading Jameson's face the way men who'd lived rough learned to read danger. "Go," Mitch said. "We'll finish next week." Jameson didn't remember cleaning the needle, didn't remember grabbing his leather jacket or locking the shop door. His body moved on autopilot while his mind replayed those 5 words on an endless loop. "He broke my arm, Jace." The Harley Davidson crouched in the alley behind the shop like a sleeping predator. Black chrome, ape hangers, the same bike he'd ridden with the Angels before he hung up his colors. Some things you kept. Some things were in your blood. The engine roared to life, thunder between his thighs. Portland at night was a watercolor of neon and rain. Jameson carved through traffic, lane-splitting past cars that crawled like wounded animals. The city blurred. Red lights became suggestions. His mind was already at the hospital, already seeing his sister's face, already calculating what he'd do to the man who hurt her. Preston Whitmore. The name tasted like battery acid. Clean-cut accountant, pressed shirts and perfect smile. Jameson had known from the first handshake that something lived behind those gray eyes. Something cold. Something that wore a mask so well even Liza couldn't see it. The Beast had seen it, though. That's what the club called him. Jameson Beast Brennan, earned after a bar fight in Bend where he'd put 3 men in the hospital. He'd been proud of it once, wore it like armor. Now the nickname felt like a chain dragging behind him, heavy with the weight of every choice he couldn't take back. The Harley's speedometer climbed past 70. Wind tore at his beard. Jameson leaned into the turns, muscle memory from 1,000 midnight runs guiding him through streets he knew like the lines on his palms. A memory surfaced, unwanted but unstoppable. Liza at 6 years old, first day of kindergarten, pigtails and a purple backpack bigger than her torso. She'd wrapped both arms around his leg and wouldn't let go. "What if the kids don't like me?" she'd whispered. Jameson had crouched down, made himself small so he could look her in the eyes. "Then they're idiots, and idiots don't matter." She'd smiled, gap-toothed and fearless, marched into that school like she owned it. 22 years later, and here they were, him racing through the night, her sitting in an emergency room with a broken arm because some piece of garbage in a button-down couldn't keep his hands to himself. Jameson's right hand twisted the throttle. The Harley surged forward. St. Mary's Medical Center rose from the urban sprawl like a concrete fortress. 7 stories of glass and steel. Jameson parked in a no-parking zone directly in front of the ER entrance. Let them tow it. Let them tremble. He killed the engine, the sudden silence pressed against his ears. Through the automatic doors, fluorescent light spilled onto wet pavement. Somewhere inside that building, his sister sat alone and hurt. And every second he stood here was a second wasted. Jameson swung off the bike. His boots hit the ground. Inside his chest, something primal and ancient clawed at the cage of civilization he'd spent 2 years building. "Easy," he told himself. "She needs you steady, not savage." But the Beast was awake now, and the Beast remembered exactly how to hurt the people who hurt his family. The emergency room smelled like antiseptic and resignation. Jameson pushed through the double doors into harsh light and the low hum of late-night misery. A drunk slumped in the corner. An elderly man clutching his chest. A mother with a feverish toddler. Thursday night in Portland, same as any other. His eyes found her immediately. Liza sat in a plastic chair against the far wall, small and folded in on herself. Her right arm was wrapped in a temporary cast from wrist to elbow. Purple bruises bloomed on her forearm where fingers had gripped too hard. Her left hand clutched her phone like a lifeline. She wore jeans and an oversized Portland State hoodie, the one she'd bought when she'd started taking graphic design classes. She looked up as he approached. Her eyes, the same green as their mother's, were red-rimmed and hollow. Jameson crossed the room in 4 strides. Nurses glanced up. Security looked ready to move. He didn't care. He dropped to one knee in front of his sister, making himself her height, making himself safe. Liza. She made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. You broke every traffic law getting here, didn't you? Show me. She held out her arm. The cast was still wet, stark white against her pale skin. Above it, the bruises formed a perfect handprint. 5 fingers, clear as a signature. Jameson's vision tunneled. Blood roared in his ears. His hands curled into fists without permission, old muscle memory surfacing like a drowning man breaking water. Jameson, her voice cut through the red haze. Look at me. He did, forced himself to breathe, to focus. Tell me what happened. Liza's shoulders hunched. She pulled the hood of her sweatshirt up, trying to disappear. When she spoke, her voice was flat, rehearsed, like she'd been practicing this story in her head. I got home late from class. My graphic design seminar ran over. Preston was already there. He'd made dinner, said he'd been waiting for an hour. She paused, swallowed. He asked where I'd been. I told him. He said I should have texted. I said I forgot. He said I always forget, that I don't respect his time, that if I loved him, I'd make him a priority. Jameson's jaw ached from clenching. It escalated, Liza continued, her eyes focused somewhere past his shoulder, seeing something he couldn't. He got loud. I got defensive. He stepped closer. I stepped back. He grabbed my wrist. She touched the cast, winced. I tried to pull away. He squeezed harder. I lost my balance, fell into the side table. My arm hit the edge wrong. The words hung in the air between them. Clinical, detached. The way trauma makes you talk about horror like you're describing the weather. The sound, she whispered. I heard it break. Jameson stood. Every line of his body was wire-tight. His hands flexed. Somewhere in the reptile part of his brain, violence offered itself up like an old friend. Where is he? Jace. Where? He drove me here, kept apologizing, said it was an accident, said he didn't mean to squeeze so hard, said he didn't know I'd fall. Her voice gained an edge, said it was my fault for pulling away. He's still here? No, I told him to leave, told him I needed space to think. He didn't want to go, but I insisted. She looked up at him. I knew you'd come. I knew what you'd do if you saw him. Smart girl. She'd always been the smart one. I'm going to kill him, Jameson said it matter of fact. No heat, no passion, just a statement of intent. No, Liza grabbed his jacket with her good hand. You're not. He broke your arm. And if you touch him, you go back to prison, back to that world you spent 2 years climbing out of. Her fingers tightened on the leather. I won't let you throw away everything you've built because Preston's a piece of garbage. You're asking me to do nothing. I'm asking you to trust me. She stood. Despite the cast, despite the bruises, she squared her shoulders and met his eyes. I need to handle this myself. Like Mom handled Dad's friends. The words were out before he could stop them. Cruel. Weaponized. Liza flinched like he'd slapped her. Their parents had died when Liza was 10. Car accident on I-84. Black ice and bad timing. But before that, their father had run with some rough crowds. Their mother had tried to manage it, tried to smooth things over, tried to make everything work through sheer force of will. It hadn't saved her. I'm not Mom, Liza said quietly, and you're not Dad. Then let me be your brother. Let me protect you. You are protecting me. She touched his face with her good hand. By not becoming the thing I need protection from. The words hit like a bullet. Clean. Through and through. Jameson saw himself reflected in the ER's glass partition. 6'4", 240 pounds. beard down to his chest, tattoos covering both arms, leather jacket with worn patches where club insignia used to be. He looked like exactly what he was, a man who'd built his life on intimidation and violence, a man his sister was afraid to unleash. I can't just do nothing. You won't. You'll be here. You'll support me. But you'll let me decide how this ends. Liza's voice firmed. Promise me, Jace. He wanted to say no. Wanted to walk out that door, find Preston Whitmore, and break every bone in his body. Slow, methodical. The way the beast used to handle problems. But Liza was looking at him with their mother's eyes, asking him to be the man she believed he could be instead of the monster he used to be. I promise, he said. The lie tasted like copper. For now. That'll have to be enough. A nurse called Liza's name. Final discharge papers, prescriptions for pain medication, instructions for cast care, the machinery of moving forward. Jameson followed his sister to the discharge desk, stood beside her while she signed forms, made mental notes of everything. The prescription, the follow-up appointment, the domestic violence resources the nurse quietly slipped into the paperwork. They walked out into the Portland night together. The rain had stopped. The air smelled clean, scrubbed by the storm. Jameson's Harley sat where he'd left it, proud and illegal. A parking ticket fluttered under the wiper. I'll give you a ride home, he said. I'm not going home. Not to the apartment. Liza hugged herself with one arm. I'm staying at Jessica's. My friend from school, she's picking me up. As if summoned, a Honda Civic pulled up. A young woman with purple hair leaned out the window. Jessica. Jameson recognized her from Liza's Instagram posts. Hadn't met her in person, but right now she had his eternal gratitude for being here. Thank you for coming, Liza said. Started toward the car. Liza, she turned back. This isn't over. I know. She smiled, high and small. But it's over for tonight. He watched her slide into the passenger seat, watched the Honda pull away, watched until the taillights disappeared around the corner. Then Jameson Brennan stood alone in the parking lot, hands in his pockets, and let the beast think about what came next. The clock in his head read 3 in the morning when Jameson found himself standing at the base of Preston Whitmore's apartment building. He didn't remember making the decision to come here, didn't remember the ride across town or parking the Harley 2 blocks away. His body had moved on instinct, drawn to this place by something older than reason. The building was typical Portland gentrification. Old warehouse converted to lofts, exposed brick and expensive rent. Preston lived on the 3rd floor. Corner unit. Jameson knew because he had made it his business to know everything about the man dating his sister. Had a squeaky clean record. No arrests, no warrants, no red flags except the ones Jameson's gut kept throwing up. He tried to tell Liza. She'd smiled and said he was being overprotective. Turned out guts knew what brains refused to see. Jameson entered the building through the main entrance. The lock was broken, budget security for premium prices. He took the stairs. Boots echoing in the concrete stairwell. Each step was measured, deliberate, like approaching an ambush in hostile territory. 3rd floor. The hallway stretched out fluorescent and empty. Apartment 3C sat at the end. Light showed under the door. Preston was home. Jameson's hand went to his pocket. Found the brass knuckles that lived there. Old habit from the club days. You carry them long enough, you forget they're there until you need them. He took another step. Jameson. The voice came from behind. Quiet, controlled. Jameson turned. Hayes Sullivan leaned against the stairwell door. 41 years old and built like a man who'd spent his life working with his hands. Mechanic's forearms. Welder's scars. Eyes that had seen some things and decided not to look away. They'd known each other 15 years. Ridden together. Fought together. Hayes had been there the night Jameson earned the Beast nickname. Been there the night Jameson decided to walk away from the club. Been there for all of it. Go home, Jameson said. Can't do that. This isn't your business. Liza called me. Hayes pushed off the wall, moved to stand between Jameson and Preston's door. She knew you'd come here, asked me to intercept. Move. Brother, I understand. You understand? Jameson's voice dropped to something dangerous. You understand that some coward put his hands on my sister? Broke her arm. You understand that I can hear her voice in my head, scared and small. And every second I stand here not handling this is, I understand, Hayes interrupted, because I was him. The words landed like a punch. Jameson went still. What? 10 years ago, different woman, same story. Hayes's jaw worked. This wasn't easy for him to say. I had anger issues, drank too much. When Amanda pushed back, I pushed harder. Never hit her, but I grabbed. I yelled. I made her afraid in her own home. This was news. Hayes had never talked about his ex-wife. Jameson knew they'd divorced. Knew Hayes only saw his daughter every other weekend. Never knew why. She left me, Hayes continued. Took Sophie. Got a restraining order. I lost everything that mattered because I couldn't control my temper. He met Jameson's eyes. You know who tried to help me? Who saw what I was doing and tried to intervene? Jameson remembered, a night at Murphy's bar, Hayes drunk and ranting. Jameson had grabbed him by the collar, shoved him against the wall, told him to get his act together or they'd have problems. You did, Hayes said. You saw me becoming something I didn't want to be. You called me out. It took me 2 more years to listen, but your words stuck. So I'm returning the favor, and Hayes crossed his arms, immovable. Give me 24 hours. Let me talk to Preston, make him understand consequences without you ending up back in that life. He broke Liza's arm. And if you break his face, she loses you. Prison or worse. Is that what you want? To prove you're still the beast? Hayes's voice softened. Or you want to prove you're the man she believes you can be? The hallway was silent. Somewhere above, a toilet flushed. Water ran through pipes. The building settled. Jameson looked at Preston's door. Imagine kicking it in. Imagine that moment of fear when Preston realized his comfortable world had consequences. Imagine the satisfaction of his fist connecting with that smug face. Then he imagined Liza's face when she heard what he'd done. 24 hours, Jameson said. The words tasted like defeat. I'll talk to him. Make him understand. He violates the order again, then you do what needs doing. But give this way a chance first. Jameson turned and walked back toward the stairwell. Each step away from Preston's door felt wrong. His hands shook with unused violence. The beast screamed at him to turn around, to finish this the way it should be finished. But Liza's voice echoed in his head. Promise me, Jace. He'd promised, for now. At the stairwell door, Jameson paused, looked back at Hayes. You saved your daughter? No. Hayes's face was granite. I lost her. She barely talks to me. I see her twice a month if I'm lucky. I'll spend the rest of my life making up for the man I was when it mattered. He stepped closer to Preston's door. Knocked. Polite. Civilized. I don't want that for you, brother, Hayes said without turning. Go home. Let me try it my way first. Jameson left, walked down 3 flights of stairs, out into the pre-dawn gray. The Harley waited where he'd left it, patient, faithful. He threw his leg over the seat, sat in the darkness, and made a promise to himself that if Hayes's way didn't work, the beast would have his turn. 36 hours later, Jameson sat in his truck outside Liza's apartment building. Hayes had called the night before, said he'd talked to Preston for 3 hours, said the man was genuinely remorseful, said he'd seen tears, seen fear, seen someone who understood he'd crossed a line, said he had an appointment with a therapist, Dr. Margaret Caldwell, specialist in anger management, first session scheduled for tomorrow. Hayes had sounded cautiously optimistic. Jameson felt nothing but cold certainty that this was wrong. He'd parked here at 6 p.m., watched the building, watched the lights come on in Liza's 3rd-floor window, watched her shadow move behind the curtains. She'd gone home, back to the apartment she shared with Preston, back to the scene of the crime. His phone buzzed. Text message. He's here. We're talking. I'm okay. Trust me. 3 little words. Trust me. Jameson's fingers tightened on the steering wheel. The leather creaked. On the radio, some classic rock station played Born to Run. Ironic. He thought about his promise, about the man he'd been versus the man he was trying to become, about whether there was actually a difference when your sister was in danger. Movement in the building's entrance caught his eye. Hayes emerged, alone, walked to his truck, noticed Jameson sitting there, wasn't surprised, crossed the parking lot. Jameson rolled down the window. "How bad?" he asked. "Better than expected." Hayes leaned against the truck. "He's scared. Knows he messed up. Showed me the therapy intake paperwork. Dr. Caldwell runs a good program. 30-day intensive. You believe him?" Hayes was quiet for a long moment. "I believe he's scared of you. Whether he's scared of himself is the real question." "And Liza?" "She's giving him one more chance. Her decision. That's the wrong decision." "Probably." Hayes met his eyes. "But it's hers to make." They stood in silence, two men who'd lived rough enough to know how these stories usually ended. Jameson's phone buzzed again. "I'm giving him one more chance. Please understand." He stared at the message, at those 8 words that felt like watching someone walk into a burning building. "You want to know what I learned?" Hayes said. "When I was the one screwing up?" Jameson didn't answer. Didn't need to. The people trying to save me couldn't, no matter how much they yelled or hit or threatened. I had to want to change, had to hit bottom, had to look in the mirror and hate what I saw. Hayes pushed off the truck. "Preston's not there yet. Might never be. But forcing it won't help Liza. Just makes her defend him. So I do nothing. You do everything, just not with your fists." Hayes started walking to his truck, called back over his shoulder. "And you be ready when this goes sideways, because it will." Jameson sat in the truck until full dark fell, watched Liza's window, saw her shadow move, saw Preston's shadow join hers, saw them stand close together. He started the engine, drove away before the beast convinced him to do otherwise. At home, Jameson's apartment was exactly what you'd expect. Sparse, functional, a couch he'd owned for 10 years, a TV he barely watched, weights in the corner, books on the shelves, mostly military history and philosophy, a life stripped down to essentials. The only personal touch was a photo on the mantle, him and Liza, her age 6, him 18, Disneyland. Their parents had scraped together money for one big trip before everything fell apart. Liza was grinning, gap-toothed, Mickey Mouse ears too big for her head. Jameson stood behind her, young and stupid, and sure the world made sense. He picked up the photo, studied his sister's face. "I'm trying, kid," he said to the empty room. "I'm really trying." But the beast didn't believe him. And deep down, neither did he. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through his contacts, found a number he hadn't called in 2 years. Travis Reaper Monroe, president of the Portland Hells Angels chapter. The man who'd given Jameson his colors. The man who tried to convince him not to leave. His thumb hovered over the call button. Easy to make that call. Easy to let the club handle Preston the way the club handled problems. Neat. Final. No evidence. Jameson thought about Liza's face in the ER. Thought about her voice asking him to promise. Thought about the man she believed he could be. He deleted Travis's contact. Deleted it before he could change his mind. Then Jameson Brennan sat on his couch in the dark and tried to figure out how you protect someone who won't let you. Outside, Portland slept. Inside, the beast kept watch. And somewhere across town, in an apartment that smelled like apologies, his sister made a choice that would haunt them both. The clock kept ticking. 24 hours had become 36. 36 would become 72. Time kept moving forward, indifferent to promises or plans. And Jameson knew with the cold certainty of a man who'd seen this movie before that Hayes was right about one thing. This was going to go sideways. The only question was whether he'd be fast enough to catch Liza when it did. 3 weeks passed like water through broken glass. Jameson learned to measure time differently now, not in days or hours, but in texts from Liza. Morning check-ins, afternoon reassurances, evening goodnights. Each message a small proof of life that she was still breathing, still okay, still his sister. Had a good session with Dr. Caldwell today. Making progress. Preston's therapy is helping. He seems calmer. Thanks for being patient with me, Jace. I know this is hard. He saved every message. Read them at 2 a.m. when sleep wouldn't come. Tried to find truth between the words. The tattoo shop kept him busy. Appointments stacked like sandbags against a flood. He worked late, took walk-ins. Anything to keep his hands occupied and his mind from wandering to that apartment across town where his sister lived with a man who'd broken her arm. Tuesday morning, Jameson had his own appointment to keep. Dr. Theodore Whitlock's office sat in a converted house in the Hawthorne district. Nothing fancy, just a blue Craftsman with a weathered sign by the door. Whitlock Counseling Services. Veterans welcome. Jameson had started coming here 6 months ago. Court-ordered after a bar fight he barely remembered. Some drunk had put hands on a waitress. Jameson had intervened. The intervention had involved 3 broken teeth and a dislocated shoulder. The drunk's not his. The judge had given him a choice: therapy or jail time. He'd chosen therapy. Barely. Now he actually looked forward to these sessions, not because he enjoyed talking about his feelings, but because Dr. Whitlock was the only person who understood what it meant to rewire a brain that had been trained for violence. The waiting room smelled like coffee and old leather. Jameson poured himself a cup. Black, no sugar, sat in the chair that faced the door. Old habits. Dr. Whitlock emerged at exactly 9 a.m., 55 years old, gray beard, kind eyes that had seen combat and come home changed. Former Marine, Iraq. He understood the weight of things you couldn't put down. Jameson, come on back. The office was designed to feel safe: soft lighting, comfortable chairs, no desk between them, just 2 men sitting across from each other, talking about the distance between who you were and who you wanted to be. How's the week been? Dr. Whitlock settled into his chair, had a notepad but rarely wrote in it, preferred to just listen. Liza's still with him. How does that make you feel? Jameson hated that question. Every therapist asked it, like feelings were simple things you could identify and categorize. Like, I'm failing her. Why failing? Because I know how this ends. Jameson's hands flexed. I've seen it. Hell, I've been part of it. Men like Preston don't change. They apologize, they cry, they go to therapy and say the right words. Then they do it again. Sometimes that's true, Dr. Whitlock said. Sometimes it's not. The hard part is we don't know which until it happens. So I just wait. Watch her make the same mistake over and over until he does worse than break her arm. You support her. You maintain boundaries. You work on the only person you can control. Dr. Whitlock leaned forward. Which is yourself. Jameson wanted to argue, wanted to explain that support and boundaries meant nothing when your sister was in danger. But he'd learned enough about therapy to know Dr. Whitlock would just turn it back on him. Make him examine his own need for control. Tell me about the urges, Dr. Whitlock said. The violent thoughts. How often? Every day. Describe them. Jameson closed his eyes, saw it play out in perfect detail. I imagine going to his apartment, kicking in the door. Preston's surprised, scared. I cross the room in 3 steps. He tries to talk. I don't let him. First punch breaks his nose. Second cracks his ribs. I keep going until he stopped, opened his eyes. Dr. Whitlock's expression hadn't changed. No judgment, no fear, just calm attention. Until what? Until the beast is satisfied. They sat with that for a moment. The beast, that's what they called it in these sessions. The part of Jameson that had been shaped by violence, that understood the world through dominance and threat, that had kept him alive for 40 years but nearly destroyed him in the process. What stops you? Dr. Whitlock asked. Liza. She asked me to promise to let her handle it her way. And you're honoring that promise. Barely. Barely counts. Dr. Whitlock made a note, first one of the session. You're doing the hard thing, the thing that goes against every instinct. That takes more strength than violence ever did. Jameson wasn't sure he believed that, but he wanted to. They talked for another 40 minutes about triggers and coping mechanisms, about the difference between protecting and controlling, about how you love someone enough to let them make their own mistakes. When the session ended, Dr. Whitlock walked him to the door. Jameson, one more thing. Jameson turned. If it does go bad, if Preston crosses the line again, you call the police, not the club, not your fists, the police. His voice was gentle but firm. Promise me. Jameson thought about promises, how easy they were to make, how hard they were to keep. I'll try. That's all any of us can do. Outside, Portland was having one of its rare sunny days. Blue sky, warm breeze, the kind of weather that made tourists think this city was always like this. Jameson's phone buzzed. Hayes, need to talk. Murphy's Bar, now. Something in those 4 words made Jameson's stomach tighten. Hayes didn't text like that unless it was important. He fired up the Harley. Headed east. Murphy's Bar was a dive in the truest sense. Dark, cheap beer, pool table with torn felt. The kind of place where you went to disappear or to remember why you quit drinking. Hayes sat at the bar, hadn't touched the beer in front of him, just stared at it like it held answers. Jameson slid onto the stool beside him. What happened? I saw him. Preston, yesterday, 12:30 in the afternoon. Hayes's jaw worked. Right here. 3 shots deep when I walked in. Maybe more before that. The news hit like a fist. He tell Liza? Doubt it. He was supposed to be at work. Important meeting according to her Instagram story from yesterday morning. Hayes finally looked at Jameson. He's lying to her, still drinking. Whatever he's telling that therapist, it's not sticking. Jameson felt the familiar rage building. That red tide that started in his gut and spread like poison. I confronted him, Hayes continued. Asked what he was doing here. He gave me some line about work stress, about how he's handling it, then told me to mind my own business. Hayes's hand curled into a fist. His mask slipped, just for a second, but I saw it, the real him. Did you tell Liza? Called her an hour ago. She's at the bakery, decorating cupcakes. Sounded happy. Hayes pushed his untouched beer away. Broke her heart to hear it. They sat in silence. Around them, the bar carried on. Day drinkers nursed their regrets. The jukebox played something country and sad. What do I do? Jameson asked, not really expecting an answer. Wait, watch, be ready. Hayes stood, dropped cash on the bar, and hoped she sees the truth before it's too late. After Hayes left, Jameson sat alone with his thoughts, pulled out his phone, stared at Liza's contact info. He should call her, tell her what Hayes saw, give her the information she needed to make an informed choice. But he remembered Dr. Whitlock's words about the difference between supporting and controlling. If he told her, she'd feel ganged up on, defensive, would probably dig in deeper with Preston just to prove she could make her own choices. If he didn't tell her, he was keeping secrets, letting her walk around blind while Preston lied to her face. There was no right answer, just different shades of wrong. Jameson pocketed his phone, left the bar, let the problem sit unsolved. Some things you couldn't fix. You could only survive them. That evening, Liza showed up at his apartment. Jameson opened the door to find her standing there with Chinese takeout and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Hey, big brother. Thought we could have dinner. He let her in, cleared the coffee table. They ate kung pao chicken and fried rice while Liza talked about her graphic design classes, about a logo she was working on for a local brewery, about how Portland State was considering her for a scholarship. She sounded normal, almost. But Jameson had spent 22 years learning how to read his sister. He saw the tightness around her mouth, the way she kept adjusting her hoodie sleeves to cover the fading bruises, the forced cheerfulness that meant she was trying to convince herself everything was fine. Hayes called you, she said finally. Direct, no preamble. Yeah. Told you about Murphy's Bar. Yeah. Liza set down her chopsticks, looked at him. I confronted Preston about it. And? He said Hayes was exaggerating, that it was one drink with an old college friend, that Hayes has it out for him because you do. She picked at her food. Said everyone's looking for reasons to make him the bad guy. Classic gaslighting, make the victim doubt everyone else's reality. You believe him? Jameson kept his voice neutral. I don't know what to believe anymore. Liza's eyes filled. She blinked it back. Everything is so confused. He's been so good the last 3 weeks, Jace. Gentle, attentive, goes to therapy twice a week, shows me his session notes. He's trying. So was Hayes, until he wasn't. Preston's not Hayes. No, he's worse. Liza stood, started pacing. See, this is why I didn't want to tell you. Why I knew you'd react like this. Like what? Like someone who gives a damn that you're being lied to? like someone who's already decided how this story ends. She turned on him. You've hated Preston from day one. Doesn't matter what he does. Doesn't matter if he changes. In your eyes, he'll always be the monster. He broke your arm, and he's getting help for that, her voice cracked. Why can't you see he's trying? Because I've known 100 Prestons, Jameson wanted to say. Because men like him don't change. They just get better at hiding. But Liza's face was already crumbling, already defensive. Push harder, and she'd run straight back to Preston's arms just to prove Jameson wrong. I'm sorry, he said instead. Swallowed his anger. You're right, I am biased. I'm trying to work on that. Liza sagged, came back to the couch. I'm scared, Jace. Scared of making the wrong choice. Scared of staying. Scared of leaving. Scared of being alone. Scared of being with him. Jameson pulled her into a hug, let her cry against his shoulder, felt her whole body shake with the weight of decisions she was too young to have to make. I got you, kid, he whispered. Whatever you choose, I got you. She cried for a long time, eventually stopped, pulled back, wiped her eyes. I have to try, she said. I have to know if he can change. If I don't, I'll always wonder. Every instinct screamed at him to say no, to lock her in this apartment, to go handle Preston the way the beast wanted to handle him. Instead, Jameson nodded. Okay. Okay. It's your life, your choice. I don't agree. But I respect it. Liza hugged him again. Thank you. That's all I needed to hear. She left an hour later, took the leftover Chinese food, promised to text when she got home safe. Jameson stood at his window, watched her car pull away, and felt like he was watching someone walk into quicksand while he stood on solid ground, unable to help. His phone sat on the coffee table, silent, waiting. 2 days later, everything changed. Jameson's phone rang at 7 p.m. Unknown number, Portland area code. He almost didn't answer. Telemarketers usually called around this time, but something made him pick up. Beast. The voice was gravel and smoke and memory. Travis Reaper Monroe, president of the Portland Hells Angels chapter. The man who'd given Jameson his colors 15 years ago. The man who'd tried to convince him not to leave. Jameson hadn't heard that voice in the 2 years. How'd you get this number? Never lost it, brother. Just respected your choice to walk away. A pause, the sound of a lighter, cigarette being lit. Heard you got family troubles. Jameson's entire body went rigid. Who told you? Word travels. Small world, smaller community, when you know the right people. Travis exhaled, smoked through the phone line. Your sister, Preston Whitmore. Broken arm, restraining order that didn't stick. Man still circling her like a shark. I'm handling it. That's not what I'm hearing in your voice, Beast. That's not what I'm seeing when you drive by his apartment at 2 in the morning, 3 times last week. Jameson went cold. You've been watching me? Protecting you. Once a body, always a brother, even if you don't wear the patch anymore. Travis's voice softened in the way that made him dangerous, reasonable, understanding. The men who hurt women, who break their bones and smile about it, they don't deserve the air they breathe. You know that. I know that. And I know you're tired of playing nice. The words hit like whiskey. Warm, tempting, everything Jameson had been thinking in his darkest moments. Come by the clubhouse, Travis continued. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. Just talk. No pressure, no commitment. Just brothers having a conversation about family. Travis, you remember what we used to say? Family protects family. The world protects the Preston Whitmores. Men in suits with clean records, the rich daddies. But we protect the people the world forgets. The line went dead. Jameson stared at his phone. Every rational part of his brain said, don't go. Dr. Whitlock would say, don't go. Hayes would say, don't go. Liza would beg him not to go. But the beast was tired. Tired of therapy, tired of breathing exercises, tired of watching his sister walk back into danger while he stood there doing nothing. His phone buzzed. Text from Liza. Good session with Dr. Caldwell today. She thinks Preston's making real progress. Maybe I was wrong to doubt him so much. He really is trying, Jace. Jameson read the message 3 times. Each time it felt more like watching someone drink poison and call it medicine. She was going back. Again, second time. He looked at his reflection in the darkened window, saw the man he'd been trying to become, saw the beast underneath, both staring back. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. Just talk, Travis had said. Jameson knew better. Nothing with the club was ever just talk, but he'd go anyway. The next evening, Jameson found himself riding east on Powell Boulevard as the sun bled red across the horizon. He'd spent the day trying to talk himself out of this. Called Dr. Whitlock. Left a voicemail saying he was struggling. Didn't mention where he was going. Called Hayes. Got voicemail. Didn't leave a message. Worked through 2 appointments at the shop. Hands steady. Mind elsewhere. Now, at 7:45, he pulled into the parking lot of the Hells Angels clubhouse. Same building. Squat concrete structure that had seen 40 years of Portland rain. Same bikes lined up like soldiers. Harleys mostly. Some choppers. Chrome gleaming in the fading light. Same sense of belonging that had pulled him in at 23 and held him until he was 36. Jameson killed his engine. Sat in the silence. Last chance to turn around. Last chance to choose the man he was trying to be over the man he used to be. His phone buzzed. Liza again. Preston surprised me with flowers. Remembered my favorite kind. Peonies. Little things matter, you know? I think he really is changing. Jameson's hands tightened on the handlebars until his knuckles went white. He swung off the bike, walked to the clubhouse door, pushed it open. Inside, the smell hit him first. Motor oil and whiskey, leather and tobacco smoke, sweat and brotherhood. The scent of everything he'd walked away from, everything that had felt like home when home was a word he didn't understand. The main room looked the same. Bar along one wall, pool table in the corner, mismatched furniture, walls covered in photographs and memorabilia, 30 years of club history staring back. Travis sat at the bar, 50 years old, 6'2", scars like road maps across his knuckles and face, eyes that had seen things and decided not to blink. He looked up, smiled. Not the predatory smile he used on enemies, the genuine one he saved for brothers. Beast, he gestured to the stool beside him. Sit. Jameson sat, noticed his old vest hanging on the wall behind the bar, black leather, Hells Angels patches, Portland chapter, and across the back, embroidered in red thread, Beast. Kept it for you, Travis said, followed his gaze. In case you changed your mind. I haven't. But you're here. Travis poured 2 whiskeys, 3 fingers each, slid one across the scarred wood. That says something. Jameson picked up the glass, didn't drink, just held it, felt the weight. Tell me about Preston Whitmore, Travis said. So Jameson did, all of it. The phone call from the hospital, the broken arm, Hayes intercepting him on the stairs, the 24-hour promise, Liza going back, the therapy appointments that meant nothing, Hayes finding Preston drunk at noon, Liza confronting Preston and believing his lies, the park scene he'd watched from behind a tree, his sister choosing her abuser over her freedom. Over and over, a cycle that had no end. Travis listened without interrupting. 30 years as a club president had taught him when to speak and when to shut up and let a man bleed. When Jameson finished, Travis drained his whiskey in one swallow. Say the word, Travis said quietly, the kind of quiet that preceded thunder. Preston Whitmore disappears, clean, professional, no evidence. Your sister wakes up one morning and he's just gone. Skipped town, couldn't handle the pressure. Nobody asked questions because men like him disappear all the time when consequences catch up. The offer sat between them like a loaded gun on the table. Jameson looked at his whiskey, at his vest on the wall, at the life he'd left behind. No evidence, he asked. None. We've been doing this a long time, brother. We know how to make problems go away. Travis leaned back, casual, like they were discussing the weather. Your sister's safe. You sleep at night. Preston learns there are consequences for hurting women. Everybody wins except the man who deserves to lose. It was everything Jameson wanted, everything the beast screamed for. Justice served the way the law never would. Quick, final, no lawyers or restraining orders that meant nothing. Just consequence delivered by men who understood that sometimes the world needed protecting from itself. How long would it take? Travis smiled. Give me 48 hours. He'll be gone before the weekend. Jameson lifted his glass. Whiskey caught the light, amber and gold into temptation. He thought about Liza in the ER, broken and scared. Thought about her in the park, choosing Preston over her own safety. Thought about the text messages. He's really trying. Maybe I was wrong. Little things matter. Thought about Dr. Whitlock's office, about the man he was trying to become, about promises made and promises kept. Thought about the difference between justice and revenge. Thought about whether there was a difference at all. Jameson? Travis's voice pulled him back. It's a standing offer. No expiration date, but the longer you wait, the more damage he does. Jameson set down the glass, untouched. I can't. Can't or won't. Both. Jameson stood, looked at his vest on the wall, at the beast embroidered in red, at the life that had felt so simple when the world was divided into brothers and enemies. I made promises, he said, to Liza, to myself, to the man I'm trying to be. And that man doesn't solve problems by making people disappear, no matter how much they deserve it. Travis studied him. Long silence. The clubhouse around them felt like it was holding its breath. Then Travis laughed, not mocking, genuine, almost proud. You really have changed, brother. Trying to. Your sister's lucky. Travis stood, refilled his glass. Most women in her situation don't have someone who can restrain the monster. They've got men who become the monster, or men who stand by and do nothing. You're walking a third path, hardest one there is. Travis raised his glass. To restraint, he said, hardest thing a man like us will ever do. Jameson looked at his vest one last time. All those patches, all those years, all that identity stitched into leather and thread. You can keep it, he said. I don't need it anymore. You sure? Yeah, I'm not the beast anymore. Or if I am, I'm a different kind. The kind that protects by not destroying. Travis nodded. Offer stands. You change your mind, you know where to find me. I won't. Famous last words. Jameson walked to the door, hand on the handle, paused. Travis, if he kills her, if Preston crosses that line, then you call me, Travis finished, and I'll do what needs doing, no questions asked. That's what brothers are for. Jameson nodded, walked out. The Portland night was cool and clean. He breathed it in, let it fill his lungs, wash away the smell of the clubhouse. Got on his Harley, started the engine, rode home. The beast was still there, still hungry, still whispering about how easy it would be. One phone call, 48 hours, problem solved. But Jameson was stronger. For now. 3 weeks passed, the longest 3 weeks of Jameson's life. Liza's texts came less frequently now. When they did, they were shorter, more careful. Doing okay, busy with school, can't talk right now, in class. Everything's fine, don't worry. The silences said more than the words. Hayes checked in daily. No more sightings of Preston at bars, no more incidents, just quiet. The kind of quiet that felt like a held breath. Dr. Whitlock noticed the change in their sessions. You're coiling, he said, like a string compressed too tight. What's going on? Jameson told him about the clubhouse, about Travis's offer, about walking away. That took courage, Dr. Whitlock said. Didn't feel like courage, felt like failure. Because you equate action with violence. But sometimes the bravest thing is restraint. Tell that to Liza when Preston hurts her again. If he does, you respond appropriately, through legal channels. But you don't make choices based on hypotheticals. Dr. Whitlock leaned forward. You're doing everything right, Jameson. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you are. Jameson wanted to believe that. Then 3 days later, Liza called. Not texted, called. Her voice when he answered was small and tired. Can I come over? Of course. She arrived 20 minutes later. No Chinese food this time. No forced smile. Just exhaustion in human form. Jameson made tea, let her settle on his couch, waited. He did it again, she said finally, staring into her mug. Not hitting, not pushing, just control. What happened? I woke up Tuesday night, 3 a.m. He was going through my phone, reading my texts, my emails, everything. Her hands shook. When I asked what he was doing, he said he was checking because he loved me, because men texted me and he needed to know I wasn't cheating. Jameson's jaw clenched. What did you say? I told him that was a violation, that I hadn't done anything wrong. He got angry, said I was being defensive because I had something to hide. She set down her mug. There was a text from a guy in my graphic design class, just about a group project. Preston lost it, said I was disrespecting him, that if I really loved him, I wouldn't have male friends. Classic escalation. Isolating her from a support networks. Did he hurt you? No, not physically, but Jace, he stood between me and the door. Wouldn't let me leave until I apologized. I ended up sleeping on the couch. She looked up, eyes red. I told him yesterday we needed space, that this was too much. What did he say? He cried, real tears, said he was sorry, that he'd add another therapy session, that it was just stress from work and fear of losing me making him act crazy. Her voice cracked. He promised he'd do better. Asked for one more chance. Jameson felt something cold settle in his chest. And? I said I'd think about it. She wrapped her arms around herself. This is the third time, Jace. Third time I've told him we're done or need space or whatever. And every time he cries and promises, and I believe him. Third time, she was counting now. That meant she was seeing the pattern. What do you want me to say? Jameson asked. That you'll still be here, even if I go back again. Even if I make the wrong choice one more time. It physically hurt to say the next words. I'll always be here, kid. But you can't keep doing this forever. One of these times, space won't be an option. One of these times, it'll be the ER again. Or worse. Liza nodded, slow. I think I know. Dr. Caldwell says I'm close to a breakthrough, that I'm seeing the pattern now. That recognition is the first step to breaking free. Seeing isn't enough. You have to act. I will, soon. I promise. She stood, hugged him. I'm scared of being alone, Jace. That's the truth. Preston's terrible, but at least he's something. At least I'm not alone. Jameson held her, let her cry, wanted to tell her that being alone was better than being broken. But she had to learn that herself. She left an hour later, said she was staying at Jessica's for a few days, thinking things through. Jameson stood at his window, watched her drive away. His phone sat on the coffee table. Travis's number was easy to remember, easy to dial. 48 hours, he'd said. Jameson picked up the phone, stared at the keypad, then set it back down. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But the beast was patient. And if Liza went back a fourth time, if Preston hurt her again, if the cycle continued until something permanent broke, then maybe restraint would stop being brave and start being complicit. Time would tell which side of that line he'd end up on. For now, he waited, watched, and hoped his sister found her strength before it was too late. 5 weeks after that first ER visit, Liza texted, "Need your help with something. Can you meet me tomorrow? Laurelhurst Park, 2 p.m. Mount." Jameson stared at the message, read it 3 times, tried to parse the meaning. What's this about? Just come, please. He showed up at 1:30, scouted the park. Old habit from the club days. Always know your exits. Always know the terrain. Laurelhurst Park sprawled green and manicured. Walking paths. Duck pond. Families with strollers. Joggers in expensive running shoes. Safe. Public. The kind of place you'd choose if you wanted witnesses. Or if you wanted your brother to behave. Jameson positioned himself behind an old oak tree, 50 yards from the bench where Liza had asked to meet, close enough to intervene, far enough to give her space. At 2 p.m. Liza appeared, walked down the path, alone, wore jeans and a Portland State hoodie. Cast was off now. Arm looked normal, but she still favored it, still protected it. 5 minutes later, Preston arrived from the opposite direction. Jameson's entire body went rigid. She'd invited Preston. This was a meeting, not a favor. This was goodbye. It had to be. Please let it be goodbye. Preston looked terrible. Weight loss, dark circles, clothes that didn't fit right anymore. He carried roses, pink ones, Liza's favorite. and an envelope. They met at the bench, sat with careful distance between them. Jameson couldn't hear the words from this distance, could only watch body language. Liza sat straight, defensive posture. Preston hunched, submissive. Preston handed her the roses. She took them, set them aside on the bench without looking at them. He gave her the envelope. She opened it, read. Her face went through a series of expressions. Confusion, surprise, something that might have been hope. Preston was talking now, animated, earnest, pulled something from his pocket. A wristband, white plastic with writing. Jameson couldn't make out, probably from the outpatient program. Evidence, proof. Look at me trying. Liza listened. Preston kept talking, pulled out his phone, showed her something. More evidence, more proof. Then Preston did something that made Jameson's blood freeze. He cried, real tears, visible even from this distance. His shoulders shook. He put his face in his hands. The perfect picture of a broken man seeking redemption. And Liza reached out, touched his shoulder. Comfort. No, Jameson thought, don't. Preston looked up, said something. Liza shook her head, said something back. Preston talked more, faster, more desperate, gestured with his hands. References to things Jameson couldn't hear. Inside jokes, shared memories, lake house weekends and future plans. All the ammunition in abuser stockpiles for moments exactly like this. Liza's posture changed, softened, the defensive wall coming down brick by brick. Preston saw it, leaned closer, kept talking. His hand found hers. She didn't pull away. Jameson's fingers dug into the tree bark, every muscle screaming to move, to cross that 50 yards, to stop this. But he'd promised. Let her make her own choices, even when those choices were wrong. Preston stood, held out his hand, the universal gesture of trust me. Liza looked at that hand for a long moment, the longest moment of Jameson's life. Then she took it, stood up, let Preston pull her into an embrace. And just like that, it was over. The breakup that never happened, the freedom that slipped away. They walked together down the path, hand in hand, Preston's arm around her shoulders. Protective, possessive. Liza looked back once, straight at the tree where Jameson hid. Could she see him? Did she know he was there? Their eyes met across the distance. Hers said sorry, his said I know. Then they were gone, disappeared around the bend, back into the life that would eventually hurt her again. Jameson stayed behind the tree for 20 minutes. Let the rage wash through him. Let it crest and break and finally recede into something cold and purposeful. He pulled out his phone, looked at the keypad. Travis's number was easy to remember. His finger hovered over the dial button. Just one call. 48 hours. Preston would be gone by Monday. Liza would hate him, but she'd be alive to hate him. Jameson's finger moved closer to the screen, then stopped. He thought about promises, about the man in Dr. Whitlock's office, about the vest hanging on the clubhouse wall that didn't belong to him anymore. He called Hayes instead. He got to her, Jameson said when Hayes picked up. Park meeting. I watched the whole thing. She went back to him, 4th time. Hayes was quiet for a long moment. You okay? No. You do something stupid? Not yet. Come to the shop. Let's talk this through before you make choices you can't unmake. Jameson ended the call, looked up at the tree canopy. Leaves filtered golden sunlight. Birds sang. The world kept spinning, indifferent to his sister's mistakes. He thought about Liza at 6, thought about promises made in hospital waiting rooms, thought about the man he was trying to become. Then he walked to his Harley and rode it to Hayes' shop before the beast convinced him otherwise. 3 days later, everything fell apart. Friday night, Jameson's phone rang at 7:15. Unknown number. This is Jameson. Mr. Brennan, this is Dr. Margaret Caldwell. I'm Eliza's therapist. His stomach dropped. Therapists didn't call family unless it was bad. Is she okay? Physically, yes. Emotionally, no. She had an episode during our session today. A severe panic attack. I had to talk her through breathing exercises for 20 minutes. Dr. Caldwell's voice was professional but kind. She's been holding everything together by sheer force of will. That only works so long. Where is she? She left here 2 hours ago, said she was going home to talk to Preston, to end things for real this time. A pause. Brennan, I'm worried about how he'll react. I'm on my way. Jameson killed the call, grabbed his jacket, helmeted up. The Harley screamed through Portland traffic. Red lights were suggestions. Speed limits were jokes. 15 minutes to cross town. Should have taken 30. He parked on the street, took the stairs 3 at a time. Third floor, apartment 3C. Jameson didn't wait. Grabbed Preston by the collar, one-handed, lifted him off his feet, slammed him against the wall hard enough to rattle picture frames. Preston's eyes went wide. Rabbit seeing the wolf. Give me one reason, Jameson said, voice dead calm, the kind of calm that preceded violence. One reason I don't break every bone in your body. Jameson, Liza's voice cutting through the red haze. He turned his head, saw her standing there, arms wrapped around herself, tears streaming, looking at him with an expression he'd hoped he'd never see again. Fear. She was afraid of him. Let him go, she said. Quiet, firm. He broke the TV. He scared you. And if you hurt him, you're just as bad. Her voice shook. Please, Jace, let him go. Every instinct screamed no. Every cell in his body wanted to finish this. To make Preston understand consequences, the only way the beast knew how. But Liza's eyes held his, pleading. Please. Jameson's fingers uncurled. Preston dropped, slumped against the wall, breathing hard. Get out, Liza said to Preston. Right now. Preston stumbled toward the door, looked at Jameson one last time. Whatever he saw in those eyes made him move faster. He was gone in seconds. Footsteps echoing down the stairwell, Jameson and Liza stood in the wreckage of the apartment. Glass glittered on the carpet. The TV gaped empty. The door hung crooked on broken hinges. I was handling it, Liza said, small voice, defeated. He threw a TV. I know, I was there. She sank onto the couch, buried her face in her hands. I was finally doing it, finally ending things. Then he got angry and I got scared and she broke down, full sobs, the kind that come from deep in your chest where hope lives and dies. Jameson sat beside her, put his arm around her shoulders, let her cry. I'm so stupid, she choked out. So goddamn stupid. 4 times, Jace. I gave him 4 chances. You're not stupid, you're human. I should have listened to you, to Hayes, to everyone. You had to figure it out yourself. I get that now. They sat in silence. Outside, sirens wailed. Inside, something fundamental had shifted. I need some time, Liza said finally, from Preston, from this apartment, from... She looked at him. From you too, just for a little bit. I need to figure out who I am when I'm not scared or protected or manipulated. The words hit harder than he expected, but he understood. Okay? Stay with Jessica or get your own place. Take however long you need. I'll be here when you're ready. Liza hugged him, fierce, desperate. Thank you. But we're changing the locks tonight, and you're filing a police report tomorrow. She nodded against his shoulder. Tomorrow. Tonight I just need to sleep. They called a locksmith, called Jessica to pick Liza up. Jameson waited until his sister was safely in Jessica's car before leaving. On his way out, he stopped in the parking lot, pulled out his phone, finally made a call he should have made weeks ago. Lieutenant Mercer, this is Jameson Brennan. I need to file a domestic violence report. He gave the details. Address, names, evidence, everything he'd been holding back, trying to let Liza handle it her way. Sometimes love meant stepping back. Sometimes it meant stepping up. Tonight required both. Jameson rode home through midnight streets, parked the Harley, climbed the stairs to his apartment. Inside, the silence was absolute. He poured whiskey, didn't drink it, just held the glass and thought about cycles, about how they break, about the distance between violence and justice. His phone buzzed. Text from Liza. I love you. Thank you for not giving up on me. He texted back, never. Sleep well, kid. Then Jameson Brennan sat in his dark apartment and made a new promise. Not to Liza, to himself. He would be whatever she needed: support, brother, friend, protector when necessary. But never the beast unless there was absolutely no other choice. It was a promise he hoped he could keep. Time would tell if hope was enough. 3 weeks felt like 3 years. Jameson learned to live with the silence. Liza had asked for space and he gave it. No texts, no calls, no drive-bys to check her new apartment. Just trust. The hardest thing he had ever done. She'd moved in with Jessica temporarily, then found her own place. Small studio in the Alberta Arts District. Safe building. Good locks. Jameson knew because he had helped her move in. Carried boxes, installed deadbolts. Said nothing about the pepper spray she kept on her nightstand or the baseball bat by the door. Some things didn't need words. The restraining order had been filed. Lieutenant Diane Mercer handled it personally. 38 years on the force, specialist in domestic violence cases. She'd seen enough to know that broken arms were just the beginning if you didn't stop it early. "Smart girl, your sister," Mercer had said after the paperwork was filed. "Most victims take 7 tries to leave. She's ahead of the curve." Jameson hadn't told her about the park, about how Liza almost didn't leave at all. Some things you kept to yourself. Now he sat in Dr. Whitlock's office for their weekly session. Talked about progress, about restraint, about the door he'd kicked in and the neck he hadn't broken. "You made the right choice," Dr. Whitlock said. "In that moment, with every instinct screaming violence, you chose differently. Felt like the wrong choice. Because you're used to solutions that end with someone on the ground." Whitlock leaned back in his chair. "But look at the results. Preston's under a restraining order. Liza's safe. You're not in jail. Everyone's alive and moving forward. He's still out there. For now, but the system's involved. Mercer's watching. You did your part. Now you let the law do theirs." Jameson wanted to believe that. Wanted to trust that pieces of paper and police oversight meant something to a man who'd already proven he didn't respect boundaries, but he'd promised. To Liza, to himself, to the man in the mirror who was trying to be different. So he nodded, took the win, moved forward. After the session, Jameson drove to the community center on MLK Boulevard. Old building, peeling paint. But the basement rec room served a purpose. Every Tuesday and Thursday, 8 men gathered here, ranging from 25 to 60. Different backgrounds, different stories. Same demon, anger. Men healing from violence, the sign on the door read. Whitlock ran the group. Jameson had started attending 6 months ago. 3 months ago, Dr. Whitlock had asked him to co-facilitate. "You've walked the path," Dr. Whitlock had said. "These men need to see someone who's further down the road. Proof it's possible." Tonight, 7 men sat in a circle of folding chairs. Marcus, Travis, both veterans. Derek, former cop who'd lost his badge to domestic violence charges. Antonio, construction worker who'd put his brother-in-law in the hospital. Liam, tech worker with a DUI and anger management issues. Robert, retired teacher who'd spent a year in jail for assault. And Hayes, sitting across from Jameson, 13 months sober from violence, present every week, living proof that men could change. "Who wants to start?" Dr. Whitlock asked. Derek raised his hand. "I saw my ex this week. She had our daughter. First time in 8 months. His voice was rough. "Thought I'd be angry. Thought I'd want to confront her about keeping my kid from me. But I just felt sad, like mourning something I killed myself." The room was quiet. Understanding flowed without words. "That's growth," Jameson said. "Recognizing the emotion instead of acting on it. Doesn't feel like growth. Feels like losing. Sometimes losing the fight is winning the war." They talked for 90 minutes, shared stories, offered support, no judgment, no competition for who'd suffered more. Just men trying to break cycles that had been carved into their bones. Afterward, Hayes walked out with Jameson. "How's Liza doing?" Hayes asked. Casual, but Jameson knew him well enough to hear the real question underneath. "Good. Therapy twice a week, started yoga again, taking an art class." "She mentioned me?" Jameson smiled, first genuine one in weeks. "Yeah, said you texted to check on her, said it was nice." Hayes tried to look indifferent. Failed. "Just being a friend." "Sure. I am. She's been through hell. Last thing she needs is someone pushing. I know, but when the time's right, Jameson clapped his shoulder. She could do a lot worse than you. She already did. They laughed. Dark humor, the kind that helped you survive. Jameson rode home through Portland's autumn evening, leaves turning gold and red. That particular quality of October light that made everything feel both beautiful and temporary. His phone buzzed. Text from Liza. Coffee tomorrow? Just us? He stared at the message. 3 weeks of silence, ending with 5 words. Name the place. Stumptown, Division St. 10 a.m. I'll be there. Sleep came easier that night, not because the worry disappeared, but because his sister was reaching out, taking her time, but not cutting him off completely. Progress looked different than he had expected, quieter, slower, but real. Stumptown coffee on Division Street smelled like espresso and possibility. Jameson arrived at 9:45, ordered black coffee, found a table in the corner. Back to the wall. Old habits. Liza walked in at 10 exactly. She looked different, lighter somehow, hair shorter, new glasses, worn jeans and a flannel shirt he didn't recognize. She looked like herself, not Preston's girlfriend, not a victim, just Liza. She ordered something complicated with oat milk, joined him at the table, smiled, tentative, testing. Hey, big brother. Hey, kid. They sat in comfortable silence, sipping their drinks, let the moment settle. I'm sorry, Liza said finally, for shutting you out, for taking so long to figure things out. Don't be. You needed space. I get it. Still, I know it was hard, watching me go back to him, making the same mistake over and over. She traced the rim of her cup. Dr. Caldwell says it takes an average of 7 attempts for DV victims to leave permanently. I'm grateful I only needed 3. 3. Jameson thought about the hospital, the park, the shattered TV, each time she'd almost walked away. Each time something pulled her back until finally she couldn't ignore the truth anymore. How are you doing? Really? Liza considered the question. Better. Some days are hard. I still flinch when someone moves too fast. Still check my phone obsessively to make sure Preston hasn't violated the restraining order. But I'm sleeping better, eating better. I can actually focus in class now. That's good. Dr. Caldwell's been amazing. She's helped me understand the cycle, the trauma bond, why I kept going back even when my brain knew better. Liza met his eyes. And she's helping me forgive Tita. That's been the hardest part. Jameson reached across the table, squeezed her hand. Nothing to forgive, Liza. There is. I put you through hell, made you watch while I self-destructed, asked you to be someone you're not. Her voice caught. You wanted to protect me. That's your nature. And I asked you to go against that. It wasn't fair. You were protecting me too, from myself, from becoming the beast again. He smiled, well but honest. We were both trying to save each other. Did we? I think so. I think we're both still standing. That counts for something. They talked for 2 hours. About therapy and healing. About Liza's art class and the watercolor painting she'd started. About Jameson's group and the men learning to be different. About everything except Preston. When they finally stood to leave, Liza hugged him. Long, tight, the way she used to when she was small and the world felt too big. I love you, Jace. Thank you for being patient. Always. Outside, autumn sun painted the sidewalk gold. Liza walked to her car, turned back. Hayes texted me. Yeah? Asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime. Just as friends. She smiled, shy. I said yes. Jameson grinning. Good. He's one of the good ones. I know. That's what scares me. She opened her car door. But Dr. Caldwell says fear means you are about to grow. So I'm leaning into it. She drove away, left Jameson standing on the sidewalk, feeling something he hadn't felt in months. Hope. 6 weeks later, that hope got tested. Jameson was at the shop, 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, between appointments, designing a sleeve for a client who wanted Norse mythology. When his phone rang, Liza, voice tight. He's following me. Jameson was on his feet before his mind processed the words. Where are you? Whole Foods on Hawthorne. I've been here 30 minutes. He's outside in his car, just sitting there, watching. Did you call Mercer? Not yet. I wanted to call you first. Wrong answer. But he understood. Old habits. Call Mercer. Right now, I'm on my way. He made it in 12 minutes, found Liza inside the store, standing by the produce section, trying to look normal, failing. Through the window, Jameson spotted Preston's blue sedan, parked in the lot, direct line of sight to the entrance. Violation of the restraining order. Clear as day. I already called, Liza said. Mercer's sending a unit. Good, you did the right thing. He's been doing this for a week, showing up places, my yoga studio, the art supply store, campus, never approaching, just watching. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I wanted to handle it like an adult, through proper channels, not through my brother's fists. She was right, but it still burned. 5 minutes later, a patrol car pulled into the lot. Officers approached Preston's vehicle. Jameson watched through the window, saw Preston try to explain, saw the officers check his ID, run his information, see the restraining order pop up. Saw Preston realize he was in trouble. They cuffed him, led him to the patrol car. Preston looked toward the store, made eye contact with Liza through the glass. His expression said, "This isn't over." Jameson stepped between them, blocked the view. Preston couldn't see Liza anymore, could only see the beast. Preston's face went pale. He got in the patrol car without resistance. Mercer arrived as they were pulling away. 52 years old, gray hair pulled back, eyes that missed nothing. Miss Brennan, Mr. Brennan, she nodded to each of them. Preston Whitmore's going to county jail. Bail will be set tomorrow. Given the restraining order violation and the documented stalking pattern, I'll be recommending no bail. Will it stick? Jameson asked. Depends on the judge, but we've got him on record now. If he makes bail and comes near your sister again, he goes right back in. 3 strikes, and we're looking at felony stalking charges. Thank you, Lieutenant. After Mercer left, Jameson drove Liza to his apartment, made her tea, let her decompress. I thought the restraining order would be enough, she said, staring into her mug. Thought a piece of paper would make him stop. Some people respect paper, some people need consequences. I'm tired of consequences. Tired of looking over my shoulder. Tired of him having this power over me. Then we take the power back. How? Jameson thought about it, about justice versus revenge, about systems that worked and systems that didn't. We build your case, document everything, every text, every citing, every violation. Then we let the DA bury him. That feels so passive. Well, it's not. It's strategic. It's using the system the way it's meant to be used. He looked at her. You wanted to do this the right way. This is the right way. Liza nodded slowly. Okay, we do it your way, the legal way. Our way, Jameson corrected. Together. Over the next 2 weeks, they built the case. Lieutenant Mercer coordinated, pulled security footage from the yoga studio showing Preston's car, from campus showing him following Liza between buildings, from the art supply store. Pattern of behavior. Clear as day. The DA was a woman named Catherine Wells, 38, ambitious. Saw Preston Whitmore for exactly what he was. Another entitled man who thought rules didn't apply. She wanted a trial. Wanted to make an example. Jameson thought that was just fine. 4 months after that night in the ER, they sat in a courtroom. Multnomah County Circuit Court. Judge Patricia Hammond presiding. 70 years old. Former prosecutor. No patience for abusers. Preston sat at the defense table. Public defender beside him. He'd lost more weight. Looked hollow. Desperate. The mask completely gone now. Liza sat at the prosecution table. Catherine Wells on her left. Jameson behind her in the gallery. Hayes beside him. Dr. Caldwell 3 rows back. Silent support. The charges? Assault. Restraining order violation. Stalking. Criminal mischief for the destroyed TV. Preston had pleaded not guilty to everything. Claimed self-defense for the assault. Claimed coincidence for the stalking. Claimed accident for the TV. The trial lasted 3 days. Prosecution presented the ER records. The photos of Liza's broken arm. The security footage. The phone records showing Preston's obsessive texting after the restraining order. Hayes testified about finding Preston drunk at Murphy's bar. Dr. Caldwell testified about trauma bonding and manipulation patterns. Jameson testified about kicking down the door, about finding Liza cornered and afraid. Then it was Liza's turn. She walked to the witness stand in a gray blazer and black pants. Professional, composed. Nothing like the broken woman who'd called from the ER 4 months ago. Catherine Wells walked her through it, the relationship, the escalation, the incident, the pattern. Miss Brennan, Wells said gently, tell the court what happened the night of October 12th. Liza took a breath. We were arguing. I told Preston I was leaving him. He got angry, started yelling. I tried to leave. He blocked the door. I raised my voice. He threw the TV. What did you feel in that moment? Terror, pure terror, because I realized the man I tried to save was going to kill me if I didn't get out. Preston's lawyer objected. Judge overruled. Why are you here today? Wells asked. Liza looked at Preston, direct, unflinching. I'm here so the next woman he dates doesn't have to go through what I did. I'm here because I survived. And I'm here because love should never break your bones. The courtroom was silent. Wells nodded. No further questions. Preston's lawyer tried to discredit her, suggested she'd been unstable, dramatic, that the broken arm was an accident, that the stalking was misunderstood concern. Liza didn't break, answered every question calmly. Factually, she'd been through hell. Court was easy by comparison. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, came back with guilty on all counts. Judge Hammond sentenced Preston to 18 months in county jail, mandatory anger management treatment, 5-year restraining order extension, no contact provisions that would follow him after release. Preston's face crumbled. He looked at Liza one last time, opened his mouth to speak. Don't, Judge Hammond said sharply. You've done enough damage. Take him away. They led Preston out in handcuffs. He didn't look back. In the hallway outside, Liza collapsed into Jameson's arms, not crying, just breathing, like she'd been holding her breath for 4 months and finally exhaled. It's over, she whispered. It's really over. Yeah, kid, it's over. Hayes stood nearby, respectful distance. When Liza pulled back, she walked to him, hugged him too. Thank you for being here. Nowhere else I'd be. Lieutenant Mercer approached, shook Liza's hand. You did good in there, real good. Thank you for everything, Lieutenant. Just doing my job, though I gotta say you're tougher than half the cops I work with. Mercer smiled. You ever want to talk about victim advocacy work? Look me up. After everyone left, Jameson and Liza stood on the courthouse steps. Gray Portland afternoon. Rain threatening but holding off. What now? Jameson asked. Now I live. Liza smiled. Real. Full. I've got a graphic design scholarship interview next week. I'm teaching a self-defense class at the community center, and Hayes asked me to dinner. An actual date. That's a good now. Yeah, it is. They walked to their cars together. Brother and sister. Survivors both. 6 months later, an envelope arrived at Liza's apartment. Oregon State Penitentiary return address. Preston Whitmore. Inmate number clearly printed. Liza held it for a long time, turned it over, felt the weight, called Dr. Caldwell before opening it. Your choice whether to read it, Dr. Caldwell said, but whatever's in there, remember it's his words, his burden, you don't have to carry it. Liza opened it. 2 items inside, a letter and a check for $5,000. The letter was handwritten, 3 pages. Liza read it twice, then called Jameson. He apologized, a real apology. No excuses, no minimizing, just acknowledgement of what he did and the pain he caused. How do you feel? I don't know yet. It's strange. I wanted this for so long. Wanted him to really see what he'd done. Now that he has, I feel empty. That's normal. Closure isn't always satisfying. He donated money, $5,000, to a domestic violence shelter, in my name. Jameson was quiet. That's something. It is. It's actually something. Liza folded the letter. I'm not going to respond. Dr. Caldwell says I don't owe him forgiveness, but I think I can accept his apology. Hold it as evidence that people can change, even if they change too late. You're wise beyond your years, kid. I had a good teacher. 1 year after that phone call from the ER, Liza stood in front of 60 people. Community center gymnasium. Chairs in rows, mostly women, some men, all survivors, all looking for hope. My name is Eliza Brennan, she said into the microphone, and I'm a survivor of domestic violence. The words no longer felt like shame, just fact. She told her story, condensed, honest. The relationship, the escalation, the break. Completely transformed from the scared woman in the ER. Hayes appeared at his elbow. You did good, brother. I didn't do anything. She did this herself. You gave her space to heal. That's everything. They stood in comfortable silence, watched Liza hug a crying woman, offer tissues and phone numbers, be the support she'd needed a year ago. You two official now? Jameson asked. Hayes smiled. 6 months, taking it slow, but yeah, she's amazing. Hurt her and I'll kill you. I know, that's why I won't. Simple. True. The event ended. People filtered out. Liza found Jameson and Hayes by the door. You staying for cleanup? She asked. Whatever you need. They folded chairs, stacked tables, swept floors. By the time they finished, it was dark outside. Dinner, Hayes suggested. Can't. I've got a late client at the shop. Jameson hugged his sister. But you two go. Celebrate. After they left, Jameson rode home through Portland night. Thought about journeys. About how you measure distance, traveled not in miles but in moments. A year ago, his sister had called him broken and terrified. Tonight, she'd stood in front of 60 people and offered hope. That was a journey worth taking. 1 month later, Jameson got called to St. Mary's ER. Not for Liza, for a consultation. Lieutenant Mercer had asked him to come. Said there was a situation. Said his perspective might help. He arrived at 10 p.m., found Mercer in the waiting room. What's this about? Young woman, 22, brought in by police. Assault, broken arm, won't press charges, won't identify attacker. Classic D case. Mercer looked tired. Thought maybe if she talked to someone who'd been through it, family member of a survivor, maybe she'd open up. I'm not a counselor. No, but you're real, and real is what she needs right now. They walked to a private room. The woman sat on the exam table, arm in a cast, face bruised, eyes hollow. She looked exactly like Liza had a year ago. History repeating, endless cycle. Miss Cooper, this is Jameson Brennan. He's here to talk to you, if you're willing. The woman looked up, saw Jameson, 6'4", tattooed, bearded, probably the last person she wanted to see. I'm not here to judge, Jameson said softly. Or push, just talk, if you want. I don't need help. That's what my sister said, right before her boyfriend broke her arm. In this hospital. Same cast you're wearing. Miss Cooper blinked. What happened to her? She went back to him, twice. Third time almost killed her. Jameson sat, made himself smaller, less threatening. But she got out, got a restraining order, testified in court. Now she runs a non-profit helping women like you. Like me. Survivors. Women who thought love was supposed to hurt. Who believed they could fix broken men. Who learned the hard way that you can't save someone who won't save themselves. Silence. Jameson could see her processing. Wanting to believe. Afraid to hope. How do I know I'm strong enough? You're here. That's already strong. Everything after this is just one step at a time. He pulled out a card. Unbreakable Women, 24-hour hotline, legal resources, safe houses. My sister runs it. She'd want you to have this. Miss Cooper took the card, held it like a lifeline. Tell me how it ends, your sister's story. Does it end happy? Jameson thought about Liza, about her apartment filled with art, about Hayes making her laugh, about the nonprofit that had helped 50 women in its first year, about the woman his sister had become. It ends with her standing, he said. Not perfect, not unmarked, but standing, and some days that's all that matters. Miss Cooper nodded, slowly. Okay, I'll call tomorrow. Today would be better, she almost smiled. Today, then. Jameson stood, left his number with Mercer, walked out into the Portland night. His phone buzzed. Lieutenant Mercer says you were good in there. Proud of you, big brother. Liza must have heard. Support network in action. He texted back, learn from the best. Jameson climbed on his Harley, started the engine, let it rumble beneath him. A year ago, he'd raced to this hospital consumed by rage. Tonight, he left it carrying hope. That was growth. Real. Measurable. He rode home through streets that felt different now, lighter, like the city itself had exhaled. At his apartment, Jameson poured whiskey, actually drank it this time, sat on his couch, looked at the photo on the mantle. Him and Liza, Disneyland, different lifetime. His phone buzzed again. Dinner Sunday? My place. You, me, Hayes. Dr. Whitlock too, if he's free. I'm making mom's lasagna. Family dinner. New traditions. Moving forward, I'll be there. Jameson set down his phone, looked around his apartment. Same furniture, same books, same life. But everything felt different. Because he was different. The beast was still there. Always would be. That part of him that understood violence. That could unleash it if necessary. But now he controlled it. Not the other way around. That was the real victory. Not defeating the monster, but learning to live with it. To use it only when there was no other choice. His sister had taught him that. By being strong enough to ask for gentleness. By trusting him to be more than his worst instincts. By believing in the man he could become. Outside, Portland slept. Inside, Jameson Brennan finally felt at peace. The phone calls would still come. The situations that needed the beast. The moments when violence was the only language spoken. But those moments would be rare. Exceptions, not the rule. Because he'd learned something in this last year. Something Liza had shown him through her own journey. Real strength wasn't about how hard you could hit. It was about how much you could endure, how high you could rise, how well you could heal, and how you could turn your pain into purpose, your survival into service, your scars into stories that helped others find their way. Jameson raised his glass to his sister, to Hayes, to Dr. Whitlock, to everyone who'd helped him become someone different. Then he drank, set down the glass, and let himself imagine Sunday dinner. Lasagna and laughter, old stories and new beginnings, family, real family, built not on blood alone, but on choice, on showing up, on being present, on loving someone enough to let them save themselves. The beast was quiet tonight, satisfied, knowing its purpose had shifted from destruction to protection, from taking apart to keeping together. And that was enough. In the darkness of his apartment, Jameson smiled. His sister was unbreakable, and so was he, just in different ways.